Oh, welcome. It's another clear night on the streets of Odessa. The merchants district retains much of its activity, perhaps more so with the influx of Canaanites into the city recently. The merchants seem to be all the more frantic, running around, keeping to their errands, their customers. It's all rather busy, even at night. Not quite as busy as the bazaar, of course, but it's definitely much more upscale. Madelain, for her part, has been summoned once more by Seneschal, or as agreed upon in their previous meeting. And finds herself going in a similar direction than she was going in before, the night prior. What does Madelain do on her way?
She will, some of her servants will have escorted her the most of the way, but she assures them that she will be straight home where she is currently residing, her haven. Or, well, rather, what shall we say, premature place of refuge or residence until she really gets herself situated. Not at this fact, but she proceeds in by herself, and on the way she will just have a look at what buildings have been rebuilt, or you know, especially in the merchants' quarters, since this is well, of course, this is not her domain, but once a large part of this place was her domain. This obviously brings up a few different feelings in her, but she's just trying to get a lay of the land, just see what kind of buildings have been raised, where, and what have been left as it was before.
Commerce is an ever-developing industry, an ever-developing area of academia and a profession. A lot of the older buildings, have since been renovated. Not necessarily torn down. This is an area that seems to have simply altered the buildings within the district to its needs, rather than having just torn them down and built them back up again. Although you definitely see the culture of the city's, in the minds of an Ancilla, upstart conquerors have definitely left its mark. The tastes of the area have certainly changed substantially, and the wares, and
And Madeline will make her entrance to the same room as they made it before. If it is the same location, then Madeline will make herself enter that place and or wait to be seated. Of course.
as I
And
just
we now at the end of our intermission that I didn't know was there. Okay.
as a before the ST was so rudely interrupted by an incredibly unreliable internet. Yeah, the older buildings that you do know of largely appear to have been renovated, and a lot of the lodges and halls have actually increased in size rather than decreasing. The area seems to be as busy as it ever was, though the presence of proselytizers and the city watch appears to have increased. This has its revenue stream, it appears.
Just Madelain will proceed to the place of the meeting if it is the same place.
You think it would be, but you're stopped about 3/4 of the way there by someone you recognize as a ghoul of the Seneschal. You saw him in the building before, obviously suitably terrified of you.
There's no reason to be terrified. You should be pleasantly surprised to see me.
Well, you say this, and he smiles politely, but clearly out of politeness and nothing more, as he's still clearly terrified of you, perhaps even more so. But he guides you into a smaller shop off to the side. The businessman and his assistant within pay you 0 mind whatsoever, and you are let into the back room, the supposed office, which is, well, it's about as full as wares as it is an office. It does have a unique charm to it, and does serve its purpose for what it's worth. There are several scrolls, mashed up by the side, of course, but they don't have any words on them. Only pictures. They appear to be maps. And before you is sitting is the Seneschal sitting behind a desk, although in a completely different building, in a completely different place this time. And the retainer will leave you, as the Seneschal just kind of waves him off, casually.
A very good evening to you. Once more.
Yes. It's good to see you again. I hope you don't mind the somewhat cramped space.
I understand from the past that you have much to see to. Please, it is no trouble.
Thanks. Take a seat.
Madelain will do so.
I hope you've been settling yourself in.
Well, I had the good company of Ulrich. That always helps.
I'd hope my grandchild is most hospitable.
Well, we managed to have him calm down somewhat. I was able to, despite the grave news he was carrying.
Yes, a little blunt in his delivery, but he always has been. The information he provides, however, is of much value.
Indeed it is.
Have you, been meeting people much within the city ever since your arrival?
Not yet, I'm afraid. I have not had much time, though, but I'm quite sure I soon will find
A shame, but...
old acquaintances and new ones as well.
Many of the faces you remember. still retain their hold here. I think you'll find yourself in a familiar environment. The relationship with the good Orsini, however, appears somewhat challenged.
He is my brother. I appreciate him. We had a long correspondence in, well, both of our absences. But his boldness, well, it is something I have not been in contact with for quite some time. Something that does not really translate to text. He is rash, bold, and, well, not as diplomatic as I would love have him be, if it was up to me, but oh well.
I do find his encouragement for subtlety intriguing, considering his own direct approach. Although he has definitely served our interests well in the region.
Of that there is no doubt, but different situations require different solutions and different people. With the war going, I do not think we need too many rash actions.
Perhaps, for now, best leave him to his studies. He might even learn something of note.
Quite so.
Alas, small talk was not the reason I invited you here tonight. Considering your experience and closeness to my grandchild, I'm sure you're no doubt aware of the presence of certain entities within the slums.
Quite aware. I spoke with them once or twice, 3 times. Not, well, very strange creatures indeed. But as far as I know, they've kept mostly to themselves. The little enclave has been quiet. They do not have the lifespans that we would have. Lifespan for us. They do not have the time.
Oh, you might want to speak up. I'm having trouble hearing you.
They do not have the length of existence as we do. As far as I know, they have children, offspring.
Yes. Your words ring true. They've very much been keeping to themselves, and we've rarely, if ever, had to deal with them until now. You say they have offspring. He asks this as if it's like a question. He's expecting a bit more of an explanation.
The one I met was clearly a mother figure to one or more young boys. There were resemblance, although they were all misshapen somewhat. It seems disfigured from birth, but the mother herself seemed also, well, different in some way. There were resemblance, and it was quite clearly a small family. And as far as I know, certain individuals of their number have not been seen and new have appeared. And I do not think that anyone would arrive from without the city to come to within the city without us knowing.
Hmm.
But then again, having seen some of the things that they are capable of, well, I cannot truly say what could happen.
They trend towards keeping their own abilities a secret. Respectable, I suppose. But recently, as stated in our prior meeting, strange presence has begun to spread. Normally, we chalk this up to some failed experiment by our more unearthly brothers among the Cappadocians, or our own. He frowns. But the location seems to suggest it is their activity. There have been an abnormal number of deformities and stillbirths among the common folk down there, and there appears to be an increasing amount of crime. Not that this particularly bothers me in any capacity, but it is an indication that their reach is beginning to grow. And I thought that your experience might be able to assist us.
I will assist in any way I can, of course. Depends on what plans we were to have. Whether merely limit their influence or have their stay in the city end. Those are two very different situations.
For now, we're looking to check their influence to see how they'll react. Although it's possible that the situation intensifies. What is known is they seem to have an odd relationship with the Sutites within the area. They seem to be at odds. Strange, considering their methodologies much appear to be the same from what little we've seen of them.
Interesting. I would have thought that they were just standoffish in general and would not clash, as it were. But, oh well. Madelain just speaks on it for a minute. But what I do know is that they have quite a few capabilities that is probably limited how much we can count on our mortal methods to encroach on them.
Perhaps it might be best to encourage some of the other clans to check their influence in our stead, particularly ones that call it their domain. I can arrange for you to have safe passage through this area. The fellows of Set are quite amenable.
If it is required, I can. But what do you know of their capabilities?
Diverse. No one creature seems to have the same trick, although this is not entirely accurate. Rather, numerous these creatures seem to have different combinations of the same abilities. It is rare that we ever see one used in an overt manner, so our information is limited. However, we have seen instances of conjuration, what would appear to be flesh crafting. We
What
can
I
begin to
wonder
mimic the
is,
abilities of a bat in some sense.
what I wonder is if it is indeed some sort of physical manipulation or change, whether this is connected with what they sometimes appear as. They were all misshapen in some way. Maybe this is as much a, what shall we call it, consequence of this, or if they are born with any case, it would, if you have seen one of them in their most bestial form, yes?
And I'm back.
Okay,
You mentioned
Madelain,
something about a physical chain, a connection to a chain, physical change.
yeah, like she wondered out loud whether or not this, he said, like, this is a chura, flesh crafting of some kind. And the fact that they were, all of the people she saw was misfigured or disfigured in some kind, if that was connected or if they were born with it. After that, she asked whether or not the Seneschal had ever seen one of them in their most bestial or bestial form.
When dealing with us, they've always opted to take a more human-looking appearance. Although we're aware this is... What the f... Come on, hangouts. We're aware that they can take a more bestial form, although when dealing with us, which happens every decade or so, they opt to take a more humane-looking appearance, although they always look broken in some sense. Clearly creatures of corruption.
What I would say is, when I said by mortal influences, it is in a martial aspect. If we were to confront them, they seem to have a quite effective way of warding off the city guard or soldiers quite effectively. They would not be much help, but other human influences through the populace, slow and gradual processes might be very helpful.
Our concern when dealing with them from a more simplistic approach, or non-natural, perhaps, is that they seem to have a very loose variation on the silence. While they still keep to it, there have been more than a few instances of panicking commoners fleeing to their homes or screaming out on the streets that they have witnessed some sort of malformed monstrosity in the slums lumbering around. It is possible that if they're given a direct threat, that they would simply slay everything in sight. With Oryx news, I am concerned, however, that they might be dabbling in forces that they perhaps don't understand, or understand too well. One ability we are aware of is that they're able to conjure from some sort of balefire. I'm not sure if you're aware of some aspects of Kenai history. Such a thing brings up unpleasant memories.
Do tell. I am sure that while you are much older than me, I'm sure you might have stories that I have not heard before.
You'll hear more in time. Now, however, know that Ulrich's testimony also correlates with these old memories, and that in many ways they're one and the same. These are not the only creatures that have conjured up such a corruptive fire in the past. And that such an occurrence is always an ill omen. However, these are creatures that have shown they can be dealt with. I would suggest perhaps seeking out one of their lesser kin. You said they produce offspring. Perhaps you can find one.
I could speak with them, perhaps, or I will think on this. Find the best approach for this. Might I just say that it is quite an honor to speak with Ulrich's grandson. It was something that, back in the day, did cause me quite a bit of wondering what his past and roots were, so to say. Intermission. As the intermission continues, Madelain will just have a look around, smile politely. It's the Seneschal. Is obviously distracted by a very good, neat-looking lamp in his own in this small shop, and the shadows are fascinating to him, and his inner toreador is clearly caught in a paralyzed state. This does not get better. And Madelain, as the Seneschal wakes up from it, he will just excuse himself for a moment, as there is a knock on the door. Madelain will sit there quietly and wait for the small discussion of the Seneschal with his ghoul outside to get over. And as the Seneschal is finishing this conversation
I'm back.
with his ghoul, the Seneschal will come back. And yeah, Madelain will just I don't know if you heard it.
Say that again. I'm really sorry. My internet keeps turning off for no reason at all.
No problem at all. Madelain just added that it was a pleasure for her to meet and have cordial, or like be able to talk and speak with Ulrich's sire and grandsire, because she had been wondering for a long time what they were like and where it came from. So
Seneschal seems to nod in appreciation and vocally noted to him.
there was one more thing though. I did see once one of them, one of these things disappear into a puddle once. Giant thing, middle of the street. It just came out of a puddle, not more than a couple of inches deep, and not too big, but regardless, he crawled out of it. They are
So,
able to do some quite interesting things, and what exactly that might entail, I don't know. But what I can tell you is perhaps a besiegement of well, their part of the city or their house and just burning it with them inside may not be a suitable solution. They have also capabilities, I think, of escaping from an enclosed space.
I see. This information is appreciated. I will see to it that the relevant parties are made aware. Um, it's as I was stating before, however, perhaps best to seek out one of their lessers. If things, as we are aware that these are quite excitable creatures similar to us in that sense, that if you are in any danger, we'll have the means to extract you. However, you're currently looking to get a grasp on what exactly they're doing, and you seem to have a great deal more experience in handling these creatures than most. Perhaps, depending on how well they keep their history, they may even remember you.
That would be one thing that would be interesting to see, to be honest. If there are any old faces. But I, if you wish, can perhaps study this a bit closer. But I hope you understand that I will be extraordinarily careful in this approach.
Of course, I'd expect nothing less from one of the clan.
She nods, and
Right now, our options remain open. We hope that this day can remain open. Although, if your reports suggest otherwise, we'll take the appropriate action. Perhaps even we can negotiate with them.
they were open to negotiations before, but this was mainly, I don't know if you know this, probably do, but why not be sharing it as well? It, their appearance was, as far as I know, a response to some of their, well, other kinds of their breed of beasts arrived in the city in response to something a Canaanite of the city had done. Once their distant cousins, or whatever they are, were outside the city and a threat to us, they arrived soon after, or a little while after, and seemed to want a little part in fighting these. Wanted a little part of the city in return for fighting these things. That seems to be very close to them in appearance and ability, as far as I know. So they are at odds, but they had a clear goal. When you need to negotiate with them, you can talk to them, of course, more so than the others, but we need to have something to bargain with, I believe. And I do not take them for being bad at pressing their advantage.
We are hoping to use our own influences as a bargaining chip. Of course, we can always use mundane means to check their influence, but removing them is a much greater task.
Well, as far as I remember, you have one advantage. And she will just point at her eyes and smile.
We do. Although, we prefer for the situation to remain as quiet as possible, lest it reflect poorly upon the triumvirate of this domain.
Well, that is not exactly what I thought about. I myself have very limited skill in the aspects of, well, dominate, discipline, but as I remember, they were susceptible to it, and a very skilled user, unlike myself, would perhaps be able to subtly talk to them and make certain things more palatable to them. Just a thought.
The Seneschal smiles at this information rather deviously. Fascinating. If you could... Yes, I believe with the appropriate positioning and timing, we might be able to set up a rather interesting contract.
Indeed. But I would suggest that this would be over more than one visit. Slow and steady would be better than a very forceful. They are, as you said, beasts of certain fervor, and the more direct you are, well, as far as I know, the more likely people are to notice.
Do make sure to bring out the serpents in your negotiations. They'll no doubt be looking for assistance in restraining them.
I will diplomatically make sure to inform them that there is a certain, well, distance between the followers and ourselves.
Good, good. We do know that they tend to frequent some of the local inns and taverns around their place of residence. Speaking of which, there are a lot of missing person incidents there. You should be able to pick them out from the crowd rather easily. You seem to have shown a knack for it already.
Makes me wonder what they would. She pauses, looks, and then just shakes her head lightly and just to. I will keep an eye on it. I will have to take a few days to prepare.
Of course.
Certain things I need to take care of.
I'll be able to supply you with all the resources you need to accommodate you. Should you request it, of course.
Am I to understand that the merchant's quarter as a whole is under is this your personal domain, or is it?
This is similar to all the domains of the Primogen. They all exist under the purview of the individual, but it is customary to allow one of the clan to feed here.
It is good to know.
Should you do well, you may find yourself reacquiring the area that you were once laid claim to.
She will just nod like very subtly and just, you are most gracious, my lord. I will do my utmost to make sure that this will be solved to your satisfaction.
As they do in the West, a worthy vassal is worth a generous tenure for their services.
So, Madelain just smiles for a moment.
I should not keep you, I'm sure my grandchild is most eager for your return.
Oh, he is. But sometimes I like to keep him on his toes. I can stay up longer. She smiles. What will he begin to think?
Oh, pardon, sorry?
What will he begin to think? I wonder. She will stay and have a little bit more of a small talk.
Yeah.
And it will probably be about Catherine and himself, essentially.
Ah, Katharina, yes. She is on a road similar yet divergent from my own. Although no less skilled.
She chose very well Ulrich, and as you did with her, I am quite sure.
She would have come to this domain sooner upon hearing her child becoming the Baron, but she was wrapped up in business in France, largely due to the games of the Toreador.
But you are both here now, which makes our clan all the more stronger now.
Indeed. The Levant has always been a stronghold of our clan, and we intend to keep it that way. We can't allow another mistake like the Nosferatu to happen again.
Right.
I'm proud that you and my grandchild were able to retain some semblance of dignity towards the clan during our darkest period.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Well, you did not last too long, so how successful can you say you are as a holder of great land if you are one of the Canucks and can only hold it for, well, less than 100 years?
Indeed, it is not the sign of a stable domain for one to only be ruling for but a few decades. All the more reason to keep in touch with mortal events.
And all the more reasons to befriend the Nosferatu. Alas, that is the way of my thinking. The more friends you have with them, or friends, the more businesses and the more dependent they are on your influence, the less likely they are to stab you in the back.
They are in a position of respect, but nothing more. I would keep an eye on their Contagion if I were you. He rules them with a iron fist. Divulging towards one Nosferatu is a good way to get the attention of those further up. I'd recommend you, while you may speak with them and build a base of support among them, not to divulge any information of relevance.
Of course not. I just have very fond memories of one who might still be in the city. I would need to see him soon.
I remember him.
Ivan Sewell. He was a great help. A bit reluctant to begin with, to be honest. But actually quite helpful. A warrior. Do you know if he's still here?
When the position of sheriff was ceded, he went in and out. He's not been spotted in the city for some degree of time. Although, if he does arrive, I will divulge this information to you. It is always good to make friends in high places. Is there anything else you wish to discuss?
No, I believe that will suffice. I thank you very much for your time.
A pleasure as always, Sister Madelain. Do tell me when you intend to engage on your endeavors, and I shall ensure that you are compensated for it.
Thank you very much. And Madelain will just nod, smile, and take her leave.
And you will be escorted out of the building, which is not very far, just down the road, by the retainer, who is, of course, as stunned by your beauty as he is terrified of you.
Don't like people being terrified. Oh well.
Well, as time goes on, he does seem to be more friendly towards you than terrified.
Actually, Madelain will probably. She'll probably. I won't find you. You seem quite taken aback. Is there something that I'm noticing? Please speak freely.
Oh no, madam. Nothing wrong here. Just give me the expect that you're the if I'm in any way disrespecting you or making you uncomfortable, I do apologize.
Not at all. Just you can relax. You can be quite relaxed in my company.
That is a relief, my lady. You are most gracious.
She will smile to him and just be as relaxed and as hopefully open as possible. And yeah, at some point she will get home. And with that, I believe the scene will come to a close.
Yes. It, in fact, shall. Thank you, player, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. I'll see you on another episode of Odessa: The Dark Crusade Season 2.